Kajor recently posted a video analyzing the #1 ranked Genji player, Alvicate, using his gameplay to break down high-level concepts in an easy-to-understand way in this great piece of educational content. However, as a top 100 Genji player myself and a coach specialized on this character, I found 3 moments in the video that I would like to critique, so I'm making this reaction with Kajor's permission to provide a different perspective based on my experience with the goal of enhancing the source material. If you haven't already, I would highly recommend watching his video before diving into mine, as while my analysis makes sense on its own, it is meant to serve a supporting role since I have no intention of stealing his hard work for my own benefit through lazy react content. The first moment I would like to talk about is this one where we see Alvicate positioning in a very aggressive close range off angle, which does play to Genji's strengths, but it is mistimed. And to understand why, we need to think about what Genji's role is in this composition. So for example, if the enemy team is to look for an engagement, what we want to do as Genji is to contest the enemy backline, right? Prevent the soldier from taking an angle on us and looking for a pickoff. Cut off support from the backline onto the Mauga, right? Maybe duel the enemy Genji, right? He's looking to lessen the pressure of the enemy team on any relevant target that he can, right? Which usually means a squishy, right? Not a tank, but there are cases where he can do really good spam on the tank, right? So he wants to contest a backline, but the problem is the timing, right? It's very easy for the enemy team to walk out and just force him out of this position, right? This is a very exposed position, and his team is not set up to hold the choke. You can see a very passive angle right now from the soldier, and she's not even peeking to deal damage to discourage the enemy team from walking. Lucio is not supporting a DPS angle from on his team, so it's very easy for the enemy team to walk out, just shoot Alvicate, and then force either deflect or dash or both, right? And then once that happens, now what they can do is they can turn on his team, right? They can just rush in, take a 5v4 quote unquote, while the enemy Genji, right, Kevstar right here, is going to have his resources to be able to dive the backline, contest the Kiriko, contest the Lucio, or whatever he wants to do. But Alvicate will not be able to do the same, because Alvicate will have been forced out before the fight, right? Alvicate will be out of the equation. The best thing that he can do is just spam tank from afar, which is not what you want to be doing as Genji. What we would like to see is the moment that Vestola tries to walk here on whoever he decides to walk on, Alvicate needs to have his resources to be able to dive on the backline and cut off his support, right? Either damage pressure from the DPS or direct support from the support characters, right? And the way that he does that is not by playing an aggressive angle right here, disconnected from the intention of the team. What he needs to be doing is playing either more conservatively, right? Playing a position like this where the moment that Vestola tries to walk, right? Yes, he's not gonna get a great poke early, but that's not the intention, right? The intention is to just be close enough to where the fight's gonna happen and safe enough that you don't lose your cooldowns early, that the moment that the enemy team tries to walk, you can dash in and you can contest the backline and cut off the support, right? So either you play an angle like this, or if you want to play aggressive, make it difficult for the enemy team to walk up and actually take a fight, you need to play a position that isn't exposed as easily, such as this one. The reason this position is much better is that not only does it give you like the same idea of this one, where it kind of prevents the enemy team from walking through this choke and taking this angle, right? But it is much more difficult to force you out of this position, right? This has much better cover, and not only that, because of that, it's unlikely that the enemy team can force you out without using resources of their own, right? Having the Genji dash in and take a duel with him, and then they both trade cooldowns, and now, sure, Alvicate might be out of the fight because he got forced out, right? He needed to dash out, but he probably will take out either one person or multiple out of commission because they needed to spend resources to actually push him because he was much safer. The position was better for him. So now the enemy team can't actually push an advantage because no advantage actually exists, right? So while yes, the theory of what Alvicate wants to do here and what he ends up actually doing in the match is correct and everything, the positioning fails him. And it was a mistake on the enemy team to not be able to punish him, especially considering that this is a really high rank lobby, right? Through Face It League. And so we have a lot of pro players here, right? So this should have been punished, and this is honestly a mistake that is uncharacteristic of someone of this level. The second moment I wanted to talk about is this flank right here, which I have a very different understanding of what happened than Kajor does. As we can see, Alvicate turns his camera to the right at that moment, which to me indicates his desire to walk climb over here and have a surprise contest on the Sojourn that he is expecting to be up there on the bridge, because that is a really good sightline for a character like her, as it provides some great sightlines and potentially even as the fight develops, the opportunity to go through the castle towards the right and have a flank sightline with Railgun to get a pick off as his team pushes up. But in this case, since he doesn't see Sojourn up top, right? Or rather, since he sees her main, which you can't quite see right now. There you go, right? So as you can see, with the Sojourn actually being below here, right, on the low ground, he decides to not actually wall climb and just stays on the low ground so in order to be able to shoot her here, right? Whereas what Kajor understood from this idea is that he wanted to push and basically make himself be a threat, right, or feel like a threat, so that the enemy team was more likely to use beats in response to his push and the Sojourn that you can see right now on the screen. But his Sojourn is on the high ground popping overclock to try and either bait beats or just straight up, if they don't beat, just murder everyone from that great angle. But the problem with that idea to me is that Genji is not scary actually in this situation. Not only is this a range where he loses, both against Sojourn and against Kiriko, and the Kiriko is there to help the Sojourn too, which makes it worse, right? His team is also not pushing here, and it would be unlikely for his team to actually be able to push, because the team would have to push through open space to actually contest those characters, right? So it's much more likely that we would see his team, right, especially his Malga, playing around the very end of second points towards the cover pieces on both sides to contest the point. So this play is very unlikely to actually work because he doesn't want to poke here because of the range problem. And if he engages, where does this he disengage towards with deflect, right? It's unlikely that this engage, if he does it, gets him anything, and so he can't really kite this way. Even if he can make it under with deflect, he's just gonna get chased because now he has no resources, so these players are not afraid anymore and they're just gonna kill him, take the advantage, and then push the 5v4, right? And no other path is as close or as good, right? Trying to go under, probably not gonna be enough. Kevster is here to punish and chase if necessary, right? He cannot disengage towards this direction either. High ground is gonna be too slow, he's gonna just get destroyed as he is walk climbing, right, by the range of the characters looking at him. So to me, this is not a situation where we have to overanalyze, right? Whenever possible, look at the simple answer and see if that actually solves the issue that you're having, right? In this case, if we're trying to guess what Alvicate is doing in the situation, the simple answer is he wanted to take the flank to contest the Sojourn up top because he wants to clear the angle, right? Kajor talks about playing this fight slow in order to farm blade and beats, right? And one of the ways that you can do that is by removing the power positions away from the enemy team, because if they don't have good positions, they don't really want to take a fight. If they have better positions than you, they want to push that advantage, transform that positional advantage into a resource advantage, into a pick advantage, right? So by us taking this flank right here, sure, we're not getting immediate ult charge, but if the Sojourn was up top, we clear her out of the angle. Now that the Sojourn is on the low ground, she's not that scary anymore, so it probably would rotate towards the right again, play towards the cover pieces that I talked about at the end of second, like the Malga would be playing around, spamming from there. We can even type this into the concept I talked about earlier, right? With saving those resources for the most important moments, where we just play more passive, right, slower, to make sure that we don't get forced out pre-fight, so that the moment that the enemy team wants to push, if they want to push, we can contest them and we can halt their push essentially, or diminish the strength of it, right? Allowing us to much better absorb the push, survive it, and then potentially punish that push, right? So this would make sense towards the idea that Kajor described, as far as playing slow to farm the ultimates, and I find it much more plausible than the idea of taking this flank, which at a weird range, with the idea of making us look scary to force a response from the enemy team when we ourselves in this position are not scary as Genji, right? The only purpose that I can see is clear the angle and get back towards the right, back towards a better range from us, or not necessarily a better range from us, we will still end up spamming at range from that position, but we are much better supported by our team, and then we are in a much better position to actually hit the enemy team if they try to push, right? Because one of the problems with us sitting in this position, right, if we get poked out by the Sojourn, we have very little health that we can play around. The Mega towards the right is very slow for us to take, so it's very likely that we get poked out a little bit or proactively avoid taking damage by just hiding under the corner here to the right. But then what? When are we going to actually go and make a play, right? As I talked about, we would want to make a play once the enemy team pushes in. But if the enemy team pushes in, then they're going to be out of dash range because they're going to be pushing forward to take the 5v4 while we're not in a position to pounce on them, right? So this flank to me just doesn't accomplish literally anything other than clear the Sojourn and get back to a more relevant position towards the imminent fight, right? As the point pushes towards the end. The last thing I want to talk about are the perk choices, which, since I've already made 3 whole videos on them, I'm gonna keep it short here. Dragon's Thirst is incredible as it gives you essentially a mercy heal pocket during your entire blade, while Acrobatics, while fun in theory, it fails in practice as it tries to solve a problem that Genji doesn't have. And so it doesn't actually give Genji any extra mobility that actually matters in a match. I tried a bunch, I went into custom games, finding a rollout and everything, it's useless. It saddens me to say, but it's useless. As for the major perks, Meditation essentially makes Genji a 300 to 325 HP duelist, which is insane. It is really good, undeniably so. I don't understand why people sleep on this other than the fact that it's boring. As for Blade Twisting, it is a very weak effect despite the condition. It is a tough condition to achieve, and it is pointless in the sense that you would want help to get the eliminations in the first place, not after. Genji is already one of the best characters in the game to snowball after getting a pick, so you don't really need the help afterwards. And if that help actually matters and gives you more kills afterwards, you don't really need the help regardless, because you're only gonna really be re-engaging with the dash if you are in good condition to keep chasing, and that probably means that your team is already winning the fight and you don't need the help. So it is a perk that I only see picked because of the culture on the character and mechanics and flashiness and fast and everything, right? And you hear the sound effect and it sounds good and everything, but in practice it is just extremely underwhelming, and it doesn't even come close in not only in value but in consistency to Meditation. So there is just no comparison here. The only value that I see in Blade Twisting is farming clips. If you're just trying to pick the best perk, you pick Meditation 100% of the time. You don't even need to think about it.